Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to another program of In His Own Words, where we read and study the blessed books of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. Of course, the purpose of this program is to encourage you, our viewers at home, to actually start reading these blessed books. Right now on alislam.org/library in the English section, more than 50 books of the promised Messiah ﷺ are available for you to read in English. You can download them on your tablets, on your phones, and read them on computers as well. Of course, reading these books are essential for our spiritual development and to increase our religious knowledge. Now today we will be starting a new book by the name of The True Nature of the Mahdi. Again, this is available on alislam.org. And the original Urdu name is Haqiqatul Mahdi. And we'll be discussing and reading this book with our two panelists here, Ata-ur-Rehman, Khalid Saab, and Qamar Ahmed Zafar Saab. And essentially, gentlemen, this book was actually written in reply to an allegation made by Muhammad Hussein Batalvi, who we've spoken about in previous programs as well, who was a staunch enemy of the promised Messiah ﷺ.
So if I would give a little brief outline of this book. As you mentioned, Maulvi Muhammad Hussein Batalvi was a staunch enemy of the Prophet ﷺ. And in the 1890s, he became really active in his enmity. And what he did was he tried to turn the British government against the Prophet ﷺ. So he basically told them lies. And the lies which he told were twofold. Firstly, he tried to impress on the government that the promised Messiah ﷺ is not loyal and he's a rebel. Even though previously in his books he had admitted and said that the Prophet ﷺ was actually a very loyal citizen of the government and he was very sincere. So this was the first kind of lies he told. And secondly, he told the government that he did not believe in a violent jihad. Right. And he did not believe in a bloody Mahdi.
And as opposed to this, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad does, God forbid.
Exactly. And then in this book, the Prophet ﷺ kind of uncovers his lies, and he establishes that he's actually being hypocritical. And he believed Nawab Siddiq Hassan to be the Mujaddid of the time. So the Prophet ﷺ has outlined his beliefs regarding the Mahdi, and alongside it, he's presented his own beliefs so that people can draw contrast for themselves and analyze. Then later on, the Prophet ﷺ actually sets out what the true Mahdi is and what the beliefs of the community are. And right at the end, he actually appeals to the government on how they can make a decision of who's sincere and who's a hypocrite. He proposes a very good solution to this. He says that each one of them should write an article in which they should write their beliefs, and this about the Imam Mahdi and also about jihad, and this they should actually send to the Arab countries. And the person who's truthful would be able to write this.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the issue of the Mahdi, and the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, felt that there was a different array of an opinion about the Mahdi, and this is another reason why he wrote this book. And with regards to this, the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, actually opens up the book by stating, and I quote, that as the Muslims of India entertain different beliefs with regards to the coming Mahdi, and especially the nature of his appearance amongst the Muslims, according to some Muslims, he will be a reformer and engender of new life, like a true lover of peace and tranquility, and a person poor in heart. The Muslims of his party considering his appearance as merely spiritual, while other Muslims, such as Maulvi Muhammad Hussein of Batala, editor of Isha'atul Sunnah, and leader and advocate of Ahl Hadith or Wahhabis of his class, believe that the coming Mahdi will be Ghazi, general slaughterer and upsetter of the empires of the nations other than Muslims, especially the bitter opponent of the British Empire, and speak of the terrible consequences resulting from the bloody deeds of this Mahdi. I have written this pamphlet to show which of these two Muslim parties is right in its beliefs with regard to the coming Mahdi. It will be better that our benign government will get this pamphlet translated into English and hence make itself acquainted with these differences concerning the Mahdi. So the promised Messiah, peace be upon him here, wants to clarify the differences between the beliefs, and then wants to really clarify that he believes in a peaceful Mahdi, and the Mahdi that he is accused of being is not actually his belief, but rather the belief of Batalvi himself.
Exactly. So just to go over these points again for our viewers at home as well, Muhammad Hussain Batalvi himself actually believes in a Mahdi who's going to come, who's going to be a bloody Mahdi, and he tells this to his fellow Muslims. And then on the contrary, he lies and he tells the government that I don't believe in such a Mahdi, rather Mirza Ghulam Ahmad believes in such a Mahdi, a bloody Mahdi. And so he's telling this twofold lie, and the Prophet Messiah ﷺ, of course, unveils this lie in the book. And further, the Prophet Messiah ﷺ writes, and I quote, "It is necessary that I should enlighten the honourable British government about the belief regarding the promised Mahdi that is held by the Wahhabi sect, whose followers call themselves the Ahl Hadith, and whose self-proclaimed leader is Maulvi Abu Sa'id Muhammad Hussain of Batala, and also my and my community's belief regarding the Mahdi. For the root cause of this entire dispute, and that of their enmity towards me, is that I do not believe in the Mahdi in whom they believe. It is for this reason that they consider me a disbeliever, and in my view, they are in the wrong. Hence, I write below my belief about the Mahdi as against that of theirs."
So the Prophet ﷺ further states, and I quote, "I deem it appropriate to mention some aspects of this belief from the books of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. For Maulvi Muhammad Hussain, the leader of Wahhabis, believes that Siddiq Hasan Khan is the Mujaddid of this century, and his books constitute the guidance of a Mujaddid."
I mean, Batalvi, of course, believing him to be a Mujaddid, follows his beliefs.
Yeah.
And we spoke about the fact that the only reason he's trying to do this and blame the Prophet Messiah, peace be upon him, from being a bloody Mahdi, is to scare the government.
Yeah.
However, he himself in Isha'at al-Sunnah has written how loyal him and the Prophet Messiah's father even was so loyal to their country.
Yeah.
But his actual problem doesn't lie with the government, it lies with this issue of the Mahdi. And he himself quotes the words of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan and his son as well, Nurul Hasan Khan. And the Prophet Messiah takes these words, stating, and I quote, that what they believe, and I quote, "As soon as the Mahdi appears, he will kill Christians to such an extent that those who were left alive would no longer have the courage to govern or rule. And all traces of the desire to rule will be erased from their hearts, and having been humiliated, they will run away." Then, on line 8 of page 374 of the same book, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan writes, "After this victory, the Mahdi will invade and conquer India, and the king of India will be brought before him with an iron collar put around his neck, and all the treasures and banks of the government will be plundered. This point is further than explained on page 64 of Iqtirab al-Sa'a, lines 13 to 18 as follows: "The kings of India will be brought before the Mahdi with iron collars put around their necks, and Baytul Maqdis will be adorned with their treasures." So these are the beliefs of Batalvi, which he is actually accusing the Prophet Messiah, peace be upon him, to hold. So how hypocritical is that belief?
Exactly, and he's believing that there's going to be a bloody war in India when the Mahdi will come and overtake the government. And further, the Prophet Messiah ﷺ, quoting him, the Prophet Messiah ﷺ states, "I say that at present there is not even a single king in India. There are only a few Hindu and Muslim rulers. However, they are not even rulers in their own right. They are only nominal rulers. The true kings of this country are the Europeans, and perhaps till that time, that is the time of the Mahdi, they will remain so, and it is they who will be captured and brought before him, the Mahdi." Earlier, this same person has written, the Prophet ﷺ states, "They will be brought before the Mahdi in iron collars. In Hujajul Kirama, it is written that such a time is near, and all this will likely take place in the 14th century Hijri." And of course, the Prophet Messiah ﷺ is just presenting all the beliefs of Muhammad Hussain Batalvi and the people he follows. And actually, in the book as well, the Prophet Messiah ﷺ has the beliefs, their beliefs, and side by side he has the community, our Jamaat's beliefs as well.
So the Prophet ﷺ, he through quoting these books, he continues to mention and summarize their beliefs. So one of their beliefs is that the Mahdi will break the cross and kind of obliterate the faith of the Christians. Then they believe that Jesus will descend from heaven and he will be the minister for the Mahdi. And together they'll be waging this war. And then another belief they have is that any sect, any Muslim sect that does not believe in this, the fact that Jesus will descend and together with the Mahdi, they would wage this war, and they would be called mujahid, meaning someone who wages jihad, this violent physical jihad, and will be a ghazi. Such people are in the wrong.
So
and then
the Prophet is saying that those people who do not accept this view, they're going to be in the wrong.
So this is their belief that the sect that does not believe the Mahdi and the Messiah to be Ghazi and Mujahid, they will be in the wrong. Exactly. So this is their belief, the belief of the Ahl Hadith. Then they believe that the state of Islam is very weak, and so the time is near for this, of the coming of the Mahdi. And Jesus, like the Mahdi, will spread Islam by the sword.
And all these are mentioned in this book as well.
That's right. And all these beliefs that they have, they actually draw them from a particular chapter in a well-known book of hadith called Mishkat. And that chapter is called Al-Malahim. And the meaning of this is, or it signifies great battles. And so the Ahl Hadith, they view that this whole chapter speaks about the physical battles which will be waged by the Mahdi and the Messiah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he then comments after this, after stating these different beliefs of theirs, "It is a pity that in understanding these hadiths, these people have committed an egregious error. In short, these are the beliefs that Muhammad Hussein and his group of the Ahl Hadith hold about the coming of the Mahdi."
Of course, these beliefs, the Prophet Messiah writes these of them, that basically it's going to be bloodshed when the Mahdi comes. And the Prophet Messiah is presenting solid proof from the books Muhammad Hussein Batalvi follows.
So after clarifying the beliefs of the Mahdi, which Batalvi and his sect and followers hold, the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, then goes to clarify his own belief and then goes on to refute the beliefs which they hold about a bloody Mahdi. And the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, with regards to this states, "My and my community's belief about the Mahdi and the promised Messiah is that all those types of hadiths which are about the coming of the Mahdi are by no means reliable or authentic in their entirety. In my view, they are susceptible to three types of objections, or in other words, they are not outside three categories. First, those hadiths that are fabricated, inauthentic and false, and their narrators are open to the charge of dishonesty and falsehood, and no righteous Muslim can rely on them." So as Ata-ur-Rehman Khalid Sahab mentioned before, they solely rely on a specific chapter of a book. And the Promised Messiah, peace be upon him, says that when you look at narrations of hadiths, it's very logical that you first look at those people who narrate them. Exactly. And if they're not truthful, the hadiths cannot be accepted.
The second point which the Prophet Messiah relates about such a hadith is, and I quote, "Second, those hadith that are weak and majruh, or as such that on account of their mutual contradictions and inconsistencies, they have become unreliable. And either no known compilers of hadith has mentioned them or has mentioned them by pointing out their defects or unreliability. And they have not authenticated their rawaya, i.e. their compilers, have not borne witness to the truthfulness and integrity of the narrators." Again, this is a very crucial point of a hadith as well, that if there's mutual contradictions within the hadith or inconsistencies, then the people like Bukhari and Imam Muslim, they just didn't have them in their compilations because they had internal problems within them themselves.
Then the Prophet ﷺ further states, and I quote, "Third, those hadiths that are in fact authentic, and their authenticity becomes known by their being reported by various chains of authentic narrators. Yet either they have been fulfilled in respect of their prophecies, sometimes in the past and the wars that they mention have come to an end since long ago, and now no possibility of warfare exists, so that one should wait for it, or they are such that they do not at all mention worldly khilafat and actual wars. They only give the glad tidings about the coming of a Mahdi, that is, a rightly guided man. And through indications, but rather in so many words too, it has been mentioned in them that he, the Mahdi, will not have a worldly kingdom and khilafat, and that he will not wage wars, nor will he shed blood or lead an army. Only through his spirituality and his spiritual attention, he will once again establish the faith in the hearts. So here the Prophet ﷺ says that the third type is the ones, the narrations which are authentic, and either they have already been fulfilled in the past through the wars that took place, or the prophecies that have been mentioned and they have already been fulfilled. But it is quite clear that when it speaks about the Mahdi and his khilafat, it doesn't speak about worldly battles. Yeah. It is actually a spiritual war which the Imam Mahdi would wage.
And this is a constant theme in this book and other books of the Prophet Messiah ﷺ, that we must, and the Muslim Ummah must realize that these are hadith which are mentioning battles are metaphorical, and what they mean is that spiritual and religious battles in terms of doctrine will take place at the time of the Messiah, and the Mahdi is one person. And Christianity and the doctrine of Christianity will fall into its ground through argument and heavenly signs, not literally.
I mean, the Promised Messiah, peace be upon him, talking about these three factors and then saying that we should look at a reliable hadith, mentions one specific hadith in which it states that La Mahdiya illa Isa, that there would be no Mahdi except for Jesus, peace be upon him. This tells us a few things, and the Prophet Messiah speaks about the fact that what this tells us is that the Mahdi and Jesus, peace be upon him, will of course be the same person. This hadith can be found in, of course, you got Ibn Majah and in Mustadrak as well. Yeah. But what he's saying, that this signifies the fact that this person who was supposed to come would come in the spirit of Jesus, peace be upon him. Jesus, peace be upon him, didn't fight any sort of physical wars. He always was a man, even known today, of peace and love, forgiveness. And this was supposed to be the spirit of the Mahdi and that Isa who was supposed to come. So the Promised Messiah, peace be upon him, said, if you want to look at hadith, then there's hadiths like this which are reliable, found in books. And what they are trying to tell us is that this Messiah and Mahdi will be none other than a very peaceful person.
Of course. And taking this further, the Promised Messiah ﷺ states, in support of it, there's another hadith that Imam Bukhari has mentioned in his Sahih Bukhari, and the wordings of which are Yada'ul Harb. The meaning of this hadith are that the Mahdi, whose other name is the Promised Messiah, will categorically end religious wars and will be given this guidance that he should not wage war for the sake of spreading religion, and should propagate the faith through the light of truthfulness, his miraculous morals, and through the signs of his closeness to God. So I truly say that whosoever wages religious war in the present age, or lends support to anyone who does so, or either publicly or secretly gives any advice in this regard, or entertains such a desire in his heart, he is disobedient to God and his messenger. And indeed he acts against their commandments, crosses the limits set by them, and defies their injunctions.
Very powerful statement there by the Prophet ﷺ. And then he further very emphatically states, and I quote, I categorically deny that the Messiah will descend from heaven in order to wage Islamic wars, and that a person by the name of Mahdi, who will belong to the progeny of Fatima, will be the king of the time, and that both of them will join hands to cause bloodshed. God has disclosed to me that all these things are completely false. The Messiah, peace be upon him, had died long ago, and his tomb is located in Mohalla Khan Yar, Kashmir. Hence, as it is false that the Messiah will descend from heaven, so it is false that the Mahdi will wage war. Now, anyone who craves for the truth should accept it.
I mean, the Prophet Messiah, peace be upon him, now has clarified both the views of Muhammad Hussain Batalvi about him actually believing in a bloody Mahdi, and has clarified the fact that he himself believes in exactly the opposite. Yeah. So the claims of him being a threat to the government are not true, but the Prophet Messiah, peace be upon him, states that this is tradition. When opponents of a prophet fail in every other way to try and degrade the prophet, they will resort to means like this. Even to the extent that Batalvi had tried to go around the country trying to get edicts of kufr, of disbelief, published against the promised Messiah, peace be upon him. And with regards to this, the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, states, and I quote, "The sworn enemy and adversary of mine, from among them is Muhammad Hussein of Badala, the editor of Isha'atul Sunnah. This miserable person has sacrificed his own comfort by remaining busy with swearing animosity towards me. And he has, carrying his disgraceful fatwa about my being a disbeliever, travelled all the way from Batala to Benares to solicit the appeal of approval for it." So he's been going around, after failing in every other way, to try and spread these lies that he's spreading to other people. And now he's trying to resort to spreading the same lies to the government as well.
And just taking this further, the Prophet Messiah Islam, writing about Muhammad Hussein Batalvi, states, and I quote, "When he was not satisfied with this alone, he continued to convey to the government his unfounded views that I was secretly a rebel and was more dangerous than even the Sudanese Mahdi, even though prior to this he himself had published an article about me in Isha'atul Sunnah, claiming that it is the height of disbelief that anyone should entertain the idea about this person that he had staged rebellion against the government. And he had repeatedly written that on the basis of his personal knowledge, he testifies that I and my father, Mirza Ghulam Murtaza Sahib, are devoted well-wishers of the British government. In short, when this wise government had paid no attention to the accusations of this jealous one, he began inciting his people and issued the fatwa about me that killing this person is worthy of a spiritual reward."
And so the Prophet ﷺ, then having mentioned how he even visited the Emir of Kabul to spread hatred against the Prophet ﷺ, and even mentioned that he would have him killed were he to present himself before the Emir of Kabul. The Prophet ﷺ then, clarifies his actual beliefs. And he says, "No such Mahdi or Messiah is to come who would redden the earth with blood, and whose great achievement would be that he would coerce people to become Muslims, and that they are entirely based on the principles of promoting peace and tolerance, on account of which neither an opponent is given the opportunity that he should level the accusation of any type of coercion against Islam, nor on their account one is at all made to subject mankind to a barbaric treatment. No one's moral condition is marred thereby. No people of such pure beliefs are forced to lead a life of hypocrisy under the government who follows a different religion." So very boldly and bravely, the Prophet ﷺ isn't scared of the Emir of Kabul or any other person, and or even other Muslims from the Ahl Hadith. He clearly states his beliefs that he does not believe in any bloody Mahdi as who would come and coerce people into accepting Islam.
And just before this, the Prophet Messiah stated that, Muhammad Hussein Batalvi has threatened me of going to Kabul, and he's threatened me that, if I go there, I'll be killed because the Emir of Kabul is against me because I have these beliefs that I don't believe in a bloody Mahdi. The Prophet Messiah said that I don't care. I openly profess this, and if he has to kill me. I'm never going to go against these beliefs.
I mean, again, it's the state of hypocrisy that first Batalvi is going around telling people that the promised Messiah believes in a bloody Mahdi when he himself does. And the second state of hypocrisy we can see further here on page 23, where the promised Messiah is talking about the fact that Batalvi, not only did he himself write things about the promised Messiah, but he acted as other people. He used to act by the name of Muhammad Bakhsh Jafar Zatali of Lahore and Abdul Hassan Tibati. And he used to write with their names and against the promised Messiah, peace be upon him. But then it later became clear that he took those articles from where they were published and then published them again underneath his own name. So hiding behind other people's names, trying to get the message through in a very hypocritical manner is what he had been doing in and out.
I mean, just taking this issue of Batalvi further, the Prophet Messiah writes, and I quote, "He issued the fatwa that I should be killed, and he repeatedly requested me for mubahala, and then shirked away from it and tried to tarnish my reputation, claiming that it was I who wouldn't do mubahala. This is the reason why I published the mubahala announcement on 21st November 1889. Further, the Prophet Messiah states, "One should consider that in my announcement, I had clearly mentioned that the death of no one was meant by my prophecy. On the contrary, it meant only that the liar would be disgraced in the eyes of the ulama and the just. And the Prophet Messiah, here is quite clearly saying that Muhammad Hussain Batalvi said to me that he wants a mubahala. He gave me also a mubahala, meaning a prayer deal. But the Prophet Messiah clearly stated here that I accepted the prayer deal, but I didn't write in it that someone will die. Rather, it was just a prayer to see the person who is a liar.
Maulvi Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, in order to prove that the Prophet ﷺ did want bloodshed and he believed in a Mahdi who would cause bloodshed, he uses the prophecies the Prophet ﷺ made about Lekram and also about Abdullah Atam to prove his case. And the Prophet ﷺ writes, and I quote, "It is clear that so far no one has realized that both of these prophecies were made on the dogged insistence of these very two persons, Atam and Lekram. And before my publishing them, they had willingly published these prophecies. And there are abundant proofs of this. What accusations could then be leveled against me? Yes, in accordance with the subject matter of these prophecies, both had died and thus had made these prophecies fulfilled. The one died a natural death, and the other at the hand of someone else."
So exactly, the Prophet Messiah Islam, he's telling his readers that the prophecies made against Abdullah Atam and Lekram, in which they died, were because Abdullah Atam and Lekram were asking for them themselves. They were saying, make a prophecy against us in which we will be punished and which we will be killed. And naively, Muhammad Hussain Batalvi tries to use these prophecies against the Prophet Messiah والسلام, and the Prophet Messiah والسلام, once again unveils his lies. That's all we have time for today, gents. Jazakallah, and Jazakallah for watching at home as well. Do go on to alislam.org/library and acquire this book, or you can go to your local Jamaat bookshop as well and acquire it there. It's very essential that we study and read the books of the Prophet Messiah والسلام, for our spiritual upbringing and, of course, to develop our spiritual and religious knowledge as well. Until next time, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.